Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's May 11th, 2023 meeting. Following guidance issued by the state in 2020 regarding open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting remotely, and individuals participating or who wish to participate can do so utilizing a Zoom link. The link can be found on the agenda, and you can also access the meeting by going to Zoom, entering the meeting ID and passcode. The first item of business is a roll call vote of the Board of Selectmen. So Robin Hunter, present.
Bob Springett, present.
John Jeffries here.
All right, so the first item on our agenda this evening are citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens' comments this evening? I see somebody on an iPhone. All right.
Mona, who's 50032?
Probably somebody in the townhouse.
Townhouse?
Alicia. All right, so since there are no citizens' comments, we're going to move to item 1.1, and that is the review of the policy regarding political groups within the transfer station, and its review of the policy as well as a vote. And I'm going to turn it over to our DPW director, Kevin McCabe. And there's also a lot of good information in the packet that we got. It's all yours, Kevin.
Good evening to the board. So the first item, it basically came to my attention when I first started here. People were trying to campaign, and as kind of you alluded to before the meeting, there was no kind of parameters or guidelines or really a formal process to request usage of the space at the transfer station. It's a town-owned facility. It's limited hours, and limited space to be able to conduct your business and still, collect, do sign holding or collecting, your signatures for petitions or running for office. And earlier this winter, there was basically two organizations looking to fundraise, and obviously the time lapsed and we didn't have a policy in place. So with that said, I looked at two other communities as policies, worked with Carl and his team, my team for historical, obviously, of how we've done in the past areas to place people in the chair of the recycling committee. And that's the policy you have before you, and then obviously there's an attached map with areas that they would be the parameters that the campaigners or sign holders or petitioners would have to adhere to and be in.
Right, and it looks like there's also a waiver that people need to sign, which was something we never did before, probably.
Yes. So I failed to mention that, so I appreciate you bringing that up, Robin. So obviously part of this also is a release waiver. Should the people that are requesting the space go outside of those parameters, Wade or John up there could obviously, enforce it, remind them that, what the rules and regs are. And then obviously you can't control people running in between cars, and should, an unfortunate accident happen, that obviously releases any liability to the town of Dover. And then also I should mention that both policies were reviewed and recommended by legal counsel.
So, Kevin, the signature collection area, the area which is commonly known as the area in front of all the recycling bins, right, prior to the take it or leave it shop. For example, if Carol Lisbon or somebody on the DPW or the task force who wanted to notify people or hand out leaflets or something that was related to a committee in the town, that is the area they would do it in, sort of the same area that we've always done it. The area right that Robin referred to at the beginning, right by, as you come in and leave, the egress and entrance and egress area, that's where the sign holding would be. And then the area to the right of where the brush pile and everything is, that would be booths where kids could sell the Girl Scouts could sell
Your Girl
cookies.
Scout cookies, John.
Cookies would do that. That's the most important thing in my mind, Kevin, is the Girl Scout. I just want to be centered on where the Girl Scout cookies will be.
So it will be in that spot, as you pointed out, next to the compost pile there, where we could set a table up, and there's ample room for cars to park and engage.
What if they wanted to do it on the area where there's parking behind, in the green space behind the recycle area, so they don't block the area exiting? The problem with having the booths over by the part where the trees are and the brush is if cars are parked and there's people backing in and out to get dirt, to get filled, to drop off brush, whatever the case may be, it's going to be hard to get around them to get to a table where some of the kids would be selling something. Could you have it on the area behind the grass part behind the recycle area?
So I guess the first comment is, obviously I reviewed this with the staff up there, because obviously pre-COVID, my understanding is that's historically where we set those booths up. The second answer to your question is, I'm assuming there'll be weekends where there'll be two people looking to set up booths. And then I would just kind of pass that on to, John and Wade, who would be up there running the operation, should we have two petitioners. But the main goal, if there would be one up there, is to put them in that designated area.
Kevin, is it helpful if I share the screen and show the graphic, or?
Sure.
I think I can do it.
So while we're waiting,
There you go.
it really is sort of interesting that the area behind the dumpsters, we actually had something there a couple of years back when the Board of Selectmen had like a meet and greet sort of day. And it seems that using the area in front of the dumpsters, given that there are times when it's pretty heavy traffic, pretty heavy volume. So I'm not quite sure that that's the right space for signature collection area, interfering with people who are simply trying to get rid of their trash. So was any thought given to using that space behind the dumpsters that John referred to, the green area? Where
Are you talking about this space here?
No, behind the area where
Four trees are.
right behind the recycle bins. No, right there. Yeah, the triangle behind the recycle bin. Yeah, right there.
So that was one question. My other question was, did we pass this policy past legal counsel?
Yep,
Yes.
you said that at the beginning.
Okay.
Bob, the last time we were there was with Carol. We were all there, and we had it was a recycling cleanup something.
Oh, yeah, wasn't it with the April cleanup? Was we had pictures of us with 8,000 trash bags and stuff like that.
So this was over
You're
here.
exactly right. Yes.
Yeah, in the triangle right there.
I mean, it just seems to separate the things would be the play.
I don't know. I think what happens is people actually go over here to get signatures, because that's where most of the people come in, and then they pull in and then they just go around and leave. They dump their trash and come out here and then just go.
They don't stop on the way out.
Right.
Well, when I was doing it, there was conversation. I can tell you that.
Yeah. So
Yeah, but the conversation, Bob, is typically happens in that red area in the front where you are dropping recyclables off and you going into the take it or leave it area prior to going through just to drop the trash part off, and then the food recycle on the other side.
I suggest, the good thing about having a policy is Wade and John have something now that they know, and it's in writing, and people that are there would have signed a waiver, and they would get copies of this policy as well. And let's see how it works.
Yeah, that was just the question. Why not? It
Yeah.
seems like a logical area to use. That's all.
Yeah. I just think because in reality, Bob, this is where everybody goes.
Definitely.
Yes, I'm well
So if
aware.
you tell people to go over here, they're all going to go over here.
Yeah, so to directly answer your question, Bob, there was thought given into that is setting up a booth in that area, but because there's no foot traffic there to collect signatures, it wasn't on that radar. And
Okay.
then the other comment you made, the recycling committee is exempt from this policy, so they don't need to pull this for their special events.
Okay.
So are there any more questions? I'll stop.
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. I'm just pleased that we have a policy in
Yep.
writing. I think it will really help Wade and John at the transfer station. So with that being said, I'm going to move to approve the policy regarding political groups within the transfer station effective May 11th, 2023, and the release of liability.
Second.
All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries.
All right. And then Kevin, you are still on. And the next item of business is review of a policy regarding the nonprofit charitable groups within the transfer station. So this would be the Girl Scouts, right?
Girl Scouts.
This is one close to John. Yes. So as we already discussed, it's basically the exact same policy, just with a different user group and that designated booth areas we already discussed on the last item, located by the compost pile to set up a table for ample parking and safe egress out, and the same associated waiver.
Are there any questions or comments?
No,
No
I
questions.
think everything you said applies, Robin. I think what's going to happen is you got to see how it goes. Let Kevin and the guys wait and figure out if it's works well. If they're migrating over to the triangle, maybe we make that, maybe we incorporate that. But let's see how this goes first.
Agree.
Right. All right. So I move to approve the policy regarding nonprofit charitable groups within the transfer station effective May 11th, 2023, and the release of liability.
Release and waiver of liability.
And a release of waiver of liability. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries.
All right. So we are going to move along. Thank you, Kevin.
Kevin's like prime star here today, huh?
Yeah. We might have to do some songs waiting for Bernie.
Let's go to item 1.3.
Right, so we are doing item 1.3, and it's Kevin again, and it's to award the townwide road preservation bid to Indus, Braintree, Mass.
Yeah, so as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago at your last meeting, when the board was approving our townwide resurfacing, mill and overlay bid, that this would be coming up. This bid encompasses pavement preservation, so something the community is not used to, that we've added into our pavement program from the work we did with the consultant doing the townwide artificial technology, basically scan and processes to set up a 3-year capital improvement plan for our pavement management. So what this bid comprises of is basically crack sealing, micro servicing, and fog sealing. Fog sealing is basically it's a linseed oil extract that's a pavement rejuvenator. That's going to take place on Center Street from Walpole all the way to Medfield Town Line. So it's one of the cheapest cost alternatives to injecting life expectancy into the roadways. Crack sealing, the community, from my understanding, did that probably about 10 or 15 years ago. So that'd be, a road that has, some joint and crack opening up. You see the black squiggles in other communities. So we'd be bringing that. And again, that's one of the other cheaper cost alternatives to injecting another 2 to 3 year life expectancy in our roadways. And then the other item would be a micro surface, which is essentially a slurry seal. It's a 3/16 layer that goes over to, a road that's in fairly good shape. There'd be prep work prior. and crack sealing that roadway and then sealing that. And it's just a much cheaper cost alternative than doing the full milling out 1.5 inches and repaving. And that treatment will be all of Main Street and Pleasant Street this year. Similar to our paving bid, this is a 3-year contract, so it's a 1-year contract, and the town has the option to exercise the next 2 years. The advantageous part about that is we have locked in unit prices. If obviously the markets on petroleum and inflation, like we're seeing and everything else, keep rising, we have locked prices, so that makes it easier to estimate the amount of work we're going to do without that unknown. So I'm looking for the board tonight to approve that contract through the town administrator with the ability to exercise those options.
So Kevin, this did you say linseed oil?
Linseed oil extract, yeah.
So that's much more environmentally friendly. Right?
Yes.
So it's basically sealant. So I could think of it, it's similar to what people do to their driveway annually.
Yes, more or less. So
Okay.
Basically, you try to capture a road that is in very good shape. It's just, as you'll see from asphalt that's been paved, 2 to 3 years later, it'll turn very gray. And
Right.
that's from the UV rays meeting at the road. So that is kind of just, rejuvenating what the sun has basically taken out of the roadway.
And so on average, how much longer does it extend the life expectancy of the road?
Treatment like that typically adds another 3 years or so.
Okay. All right.
Kevin, I went back to the 2002 Blue Book, and just to try to compare, we approved $275,000.
John, did you say 2002?
No, 22.
Oh, sorry.
22.
Okay.
$275,000, and the 275,000 it's been pretty consistent around 200, 275 to but that's just for patching. That is a separate line item. Is that correct? This rather is a separate line item versus the patching that we annually do.
Correct. So you would be talking about the Tarvia,
Tarvia patching.
Yeah, which would be so I guess to answer your question, no, John, I'm going to use that funding for part of this contract.
Okay.
It's road work, so it falls under that expense. However, it's just a different type of, pavement restoration, if you will.
Got it. And so let's just say inflation adjusted 300,000, and this is a different, a little bit, obviously this is a little bit more money, but as a percentage of miles, how many more miles of road are you doing with this money versus this money?
I wouldn't have that number for you because I certainly don't have access to the 2002 Blue Book.
No, it's 2020. Don't listen to Bob. It's 2000.
I just think you said 2002 because you're
did.
nostalgic.
Hey, I apologize. I meant to say 2022.
Well, the answer to that would be 100% more miles because we didn't conduct any paving last summer. So those extra funds, this contract's a calendar year contract, so we'll be able to encumber the funds we didn't spend in Tarvia to go towards this road program that will kick off sometime in July.
And the difference is, I'm sorry, Robin, go ahead.
What about the Chapter 90 funds? Is this net of that, or?
It'll all be a combination of that. So both bids are a unit cost. So it's not an actual per se bid that, we have to expend this the funds here. Obviously when we estimate, they come up a little bit higher than what's actually going to be expended as far as quantities. So the pricing will be cheaper than their proposed bid. Because if the bid tab I showed you, there's items in there that if we can't get to, such as, sweeping the roads, there's a line item for that if we had to bring the contractor in. So obviously I don't foresee using that line item. But the funding will be absolutely partial Chapter 90 and then our local operating.
Does it say, it's hard to see on the spreadsheet, Kevin, the streets, you show the number of streets and the various places that are patched. Did we ever, historically, did we do it in miles, or did we do it, what was the metric we used to determine how many streets or how many miles of streets or blocks of streets? How did we do it in the past?
My understanding is historically was typically worst first. And that's kind of what pretty much every community did. And as you know, people modernize and progress, they've realized the pavement preservation is a much cheaper alternative to inject, life into these roads prior to it falling to a category where you have to grind out the entire road and pave it. So that's the advantage is, there's a degradation curve for pavement conditions. They call it a PCI, pavement condition index. So basically, before it falls out of preventative maintenance, which would be just your fog seal or crack seal, you want to, inject the life into it and do, the crack seal, fog seal prior to that falling into microsurface. And then if you don't do it in microsurface, it falls down to a more costly repair. Which would be the mill and fill. So that's what we're looking to do, is to expand the amount of service life we add into these roads, and the actual footprint of roads we touch. That if we're just doing mill and fill, typically we wouldn't be able to touch the same footprint as doing these cheaper cost alternatives to better condition roadways.
Are you going to use a metric going forward so you can come back to us in 3 years and say the first year was 400,000, the second year was 500,000, the third year was 600,000, but with escalation, and that covered?
Yeah, so part of that report, which should be finalized in the next week or so, basically has, the draft had an estimation that Dover should spend $800,000 per year on the road program to maintain our level service of pavement condition index.
Got it. Over how many? Does it say how many miles, or does it say as a percentage of the total roads, or how do they determine the 800,000?
So yeah, they have algorithms in there for cost benefit analysis to choose, which road we do. So basically, that number, I guess, to answer your question, will vary each and every year.
As you can probably determine, we do this type of stuff every minute of every day in my office. So
sure. And obviously, to put things in perspective, 2 years ago, our last paving bid was, I believe, 72 or 72.50. And obviously our last bid was $93 a ton. So obviously asphalt in the last 2 years is absolutely skyrocketed.
And that's a direct result of the price of oil going up too. Are there any additional questions or comments? All right, then I'm going to move to award the townwide roadway preservation bid to Indus of Braintree, Massachusetts for the first year of a renewable 3-year contract at a cost of $462,421, and to authorize the interim town administrator to sign the relevant contracts.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries.
All right, thank you, Kevin. So when will this work start?
I have a meeting next week with the
Okay.
contractor. So once we execute documents, we'll have that. And then when all that information becomes available, I'll be able to post a schedule with the roads and the treatment types and a little bit of information of what that actually means to the residents, that type of treatment. So I would imagine I'd have that all on the webpage by the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great because it's nice to know ahead of time which roads are going to be impacted. So,
yeah.
and what time things are going to start.
Right.
Kevin, Bob lived in London. He knows how to drive on the wrong side of the road, so he could actually operate the sweeper if you needed him.
I could do that. Plus, I could do it sideways.
I appreciate that.
You're very talented, Bob.
Well, I just drive fast and make sharp turns.
So I'm going to move on to item 1.4.
Good.
Oh my word, Kevin, it's you again. So this is the Aquarian's paving contribution agreement in lieu of permanent resurfacing and restoration.
Aquarian obviously recently did work on Picardy, Brenton, and Normandy Lane, portion of both of those roads and one of all of them. So in our pre-construction meeting, obviously they did the work, and my question to them was about pavement restoration, what they plan to do. The Department of Public Utilities requires utilities to come back and do a permanent patch repair. And typically, that varies from a foot to maybe 2 feet beyond what their existing trench is. So obviously I wanted it to go through an entire frost heave cycle, so the road and all the gravel would settle out. And then, so in talking and working with Aquarian, I had a similar agreement set up in my last township with our quasi water department, that they basically gave us contribution funds and we added in the work into our paving program. It's advantageous for both sides because Aquarian wouldn't have to, pay a contractor to come in and mill out and pave such a small area. And then also on the town side, we get to coordinate the work and we get to add the tonnage to our overall bid, which subsequently reduces the overall price of that tonnage. And also, it provides the constituents a much better result, being able to go curb to curb and getting fully restoring the roadway.
When will this take place, Kevin? Will you just fold this into the previous project?
That's correct. This is just going to get added into the work with our contractor LaRusso over the summer.
Yeah.
And Kevin, how's the contribution derived? Is it based upon a proposal?
No, so Bob and myself worked on a cost
Okay.
estimate. So we went out there, measured the roadway and put quantities in, waited for our bid opening, and then put the actual unit cost for what LaRusso's bid was. And that's how the prices for each roadway were derived.
Okay. When you said Bob, I thought Bob Springer and you. But...
I did help him out. I gave him.
We
my
do know Bob
calculator.
has multiple talents, yes.
Yeah.
Bob Tosi down here at the DP.
Right. That's what it dawned on me. Are there any other
Mr.
questions?
Tosi. Yes.
Right. Not Mr. Springer.
Robin, before you asked for the motion and the second on this one, I had just one question. Kevin, on Picardy, when you coming up from the townhouse or the emergency building, you take a left onto Picardy and where the trench begins, you get to Normandy, and then the trench goes up to Picardy, over to Brenton Road. There's a couple of homes that are going to be tying into Aquarian water supply that are further up on Picardy. Do they have to coordinate with you with regards to repaving after they tie in?
Yes. So they would have to pull a street permit. The town currently doesn't have any moratorium on the roadways. So that's something else I'd like a policy to get implemented with the board in future months, to basically protect our investment in our roadways, but we currently don't have one in place.
Because
so I will talk to Aquarian to see if they can expedite that work prior to us, beginning this road work over the summer.
It does not happen very often at all, but it definitely does happen, and Aquarian has no policy for it.
Well, is it an aquarium policy or a town policy?
Well, the water mains are Aquarian and the streets are the town. So you got to open the street to get to the main to tie it into the new house. And Aquarian says to the homeowner, you got to have your guy coordinate with Bobby Tosi to make sure that you're opening the road at the right place. Typically, it's just a spot that goes from your house right out to the street, and then you open it up and close it up. But the close up part basically has to be inspected and overseen by Bobby, and you have to coordinate that with Aquarian. So it goes back to that conversation that we've had numerous times. Aquarian owns the water, we own the pipes.
All right, if there's no further discussion, then I'm going to move to approve and sign the agreement regarding Aquarian's paving contribution in the amount of $67,977.30 in lieu of performing permanent resurfacing and restoration.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springer.
Hi, John Jeffries.
All right, thank you. So Kevin, do you get to go home and eat dinner now? I guess so.
Just in time for the start of the Celtics. So,
Oh
thank
my
you.
word, they better win tonight.
Yeah, let's hope so. Thank you to the board.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoy the game. And so we're at item 1.5, and the first item is the Board of Selectmen update. And Bob, it looks like you're first here.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that happened.
This update.
You know, I slipped the TA $20 to put me at the bottom, but apparently it's not sufficient amount of money. So, I mean, the community center building project, really what they're doing is putting together a deck presentation material
Okay.
to present it at least two, and perhaps more, information sessions for the town. So
Okay.
that's sort of the key thing.
Have they publicized? Do they have dates for those?
Yes, they're all published. It's all on the website. And it's been pretty widely circulated. So that's been very positive. So there are two issues that need to be finalized so that when we give the presentation to the residents in the information sessions and as well as at the June 3rd meeting. So one is the tax impact of the additional spending on Carroll. And part of that is also the tax impact of projected borrowing out over the next several years so that the residents can get an idea of what the demand is for borrowing to meet capital needs in other sort of conservation projects. The immediate question that we've been wrestling with is a plan B. If the town does not approve additional funding for Carroll, what's plan B? And what I've said to people is, well, as I understand it, Carl can get me right, wrong, or indifferent. As I understand it, we have an approved project for a community center, and we have something less than $19 million to do it. My understanding is it would be up to the Board of Selectmen to determine a plan B. And the plan B that I talk to people about is going back and simply renovating the original Carroll building to provide a community center, which clearly people want at a cost that people feel is reasonable. But that's Bob's view of the world. I think it makes sense because we've used that building for the last 20 years. If we update and renovate and we do it carefully, I asked the OPM for an estimate of doing it that way, but he was unable to do so. But I think that's a viable plan B that we could talk to the town about at the information sessions and the June 3rd meeting. But I want to make sure I'm not out on the edge of a plank.
Well, I would say another plan B is going to another architect and seeing what you can get for $19 million.
Well, that would be an alternate. Yes, we could do basically what we're talking about is redoing the work we did in 2019.
Right, and I think you could most likely leverage a lot of the work that you've done.
That's a theory, yes.
And see, go to an architect that has done recently many community centers and see what you could do. And then you're almost presenting the town with the same two options again.
Exactly. It's
What a
2019. It's
renovation looks
2019
like,
again.
right.
Yes.
You know, and we had, you know, keep in mind that that was something we had discussed, but
Back
there
in August
was-
and November and September.
right, but there was a strong desire to get this to town meeting by this summer.
Right.
And we just ran out of time to properly vet some of the other options and even some of the cost savings that the peer review came up with.
Yep. But you guys are comfortable with that plan B?
Right, because I think that's all we could, you know, all we can do, right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I mean, I don't think there's any debate that this is what the community wants.
Yes. John, you good?
But yeah, I agree.
Okay. Thank you, guys. And
Yeah.
I'll augment that with the other alternative, Robin, that you talked about.
Right. You know, we don't know. We don't have a magic ball. We don't know what can be built for 19 million. You know, and we would have to spend money to get that design, but it's certainly another option. And the same way we would have to spend money to refurbish.
Yes, exactly.
You know,
Yes. Yes.
you know, so it would be both.
But we'd be limited to the approved funds.
Right, and that would be right. And so, you know, one would assume you may not get everything you want, but maybe you could build a building that will allow for expansion at a later date.
Yeah, and you can go down the same path with, you know, philanthropy and fundraising.
Right. I mean, there's
So,
a whole
Gives us a lot of options, I think.
Right. But I mean, I again, there's no debate here. This is what the community wanted.
Exactly.
Right.
That's it, really.
All right. I mean, it's around the corner.
Oh, the other piece, I'm sorry, Robin. The assumption would be that we take down the 1971 and air that would take down the other buildings.
Right. You know, the thing over on the
On the
side.
left, as you're looking at it from the townhouse.
Right.
Yep.
So
Okay.
how many weeks is it? It's
To the meeting?
only 3 weeks away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's coming down our necks. Yes.
Uh,
I will say there's been a lot of good organization by people, particularly around the COA, to make people aware of what's going on. And so Ami has done a lot of work there, as well as, you know, Ruth getting the word out on the webpage. Yes.
Is it worthwhile, and it's a lot of heavy lifting from Ruth, is it worthwhile just doing like a special edition of the digital newsletter, just kind of pulling everything together for Carol?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Robin. We need to pull the deck together first.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Good. So, Bob, are you good?
Yes, sir.
So, Robin, Bob, a matter came up with regards to the screening committee for the chief. Actually, the good news is everyone has been sworn in, signed in. I believe everyone. The last person told me that they had completed it last week. But the board was informed this week of an issue by the Patrolmen's Union. The issue was brought to the Board of Selectmen by the Patrolmen's Union, that there could be a potential grievance by the union, by the Patrolmen's Union. I discussed the matter with Kevin Feely, our labor attorney, immediately upon hearing of this. He suggested we, out of an abundance of caution, and to avoid any potential future potential grievance that could come as a result of having a union member on the screening committee, to replace the patrolman on the committee with a citizen. So I wanted to bring that to your attention immediately. And again, as a result of the conversation with Kevin, I'm going to make the motion that we unfortunately remove the patrolman, Katie Kolatichek, from the committee again, out of an abundance of caution and as a result of this communication from the Patrolmen's Union to the Board of Selectmen, and replace her with a citizen that we will have to have a separate conversation with after this is approved by the board. And then I'll come back to you with that recommendation for that person.
So just so that I understand this, so the Patrolmen's Union, in order to place its potential, you have to negotiate being able.
No, there's no negotiating. It's not something that there is no precedent. There's no requirement. It's not a matter of negotiation. It's not even an item that's open for discussion. We were simply doing this as a community service, and the matter was, I'm assumingly discussed internally and then brought to our attention through their attorney, through the union's representation.
Okay, so basically they're not interested then in having a patrolman serve on the search committee.
I don't think that
Because it's not really allowed under the contract, I guess.
I don't know the specifics of it, Robin, and I just, there was conversation about changing it or asking it to be a negotiated item, of which Kevin said that is absolutely not something we even want to begin to discuss, because it's not something that we have any precedent on. There's no historical precedent, and it's not an item that is even up for negotiation in a union setting. It's just hasn't ever been done anywhere.
Okay, all right.
So in response, John, you want the motion to remove the patrolman.
Yeah.
And I imagine you've already talked to her, right? And
no, I can't have a conversation with her about this until we actually have the vote and discuss it in open, because I don't really understand a lot of the nuances of the labor negotiation and what is.
I am asking all these questions because I don't, like, to me, from a common sense standpoint,
it makes no sense.
A hard time, right? Yeah. So that's why I apologize for asking all these questions, but I get it. I completely get it.
It is something I have been scratching my head over for 3 days. It's just,
this is definitely a curveball. It's just weird.
Right. And we were trying to do what we thought
inclusive.
Was best.
Yes, we were trying to be inclusive.
All right.
So who's going to make the motion, John?
I'm going to make the motion that the board move to replace the officer that we appointed for the screening committee with a citizen, and unfortunately, that is sort of where the board is, and I guess add to it that at the suggestion of our town, after conversation. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome. Second.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Aye, Bob Springett.
Aye, John Jeffries.
All right. Did you have any additional candidates?
Yes.
Go back to? Okay.
Yeah, right. We have several that definitely fit. As we've discussed many times in public, we have a balance. We have a specific number. We want to keep it at. Want to have 7. You want to have a balance of men and women. You want to have a balance of ages. You want to have a balance of representation. So the stakeholders. So yes, we do have people that do fit the profile. I feel that this is just, it makes no sense to me at all, but I am not an attorney, and labor law being what it is, I'm following the suggestions of our town council.
No, I mean, that's what we need to do. Now, as far as the search, have you hired? So how does it work? Have we interviewed different firms? Have we selected a firm?
Carl, where you want to speak to the interview and selection process of the search firms?
Sure. The bids are due tomorrow for search firms.
So we'll get bids tomorrow or?
We'll get bids tomorrow. They have to meet some criteria that we established. If a firm meets all of the criteria, then it's based just on low price, whichever the low price is for the firm that met all of our criteria.
Okay, all right. And I'd imagine there's only a handful of firms that actually do this, right?
There is, yeah, it's relatively finite. We sent the package, our invitation to bids, to all of them that we knew, and as I recall, it was 6 firms.
Okay. And we don't expect all 6 to return, or do we?
I would not expect all 6 to.
Okay.
In fact, I'm only aware of one that has come in as of today.
Okay, all right. And then would you imagine the timeline to be pretty similar, like to the TA search? I assume you post for the position.
Yeah, it'll be sort of a similar process. The consultant will meet with the board, the chief, the police officers, and try to come up with the type of chief we're looking for, sort of the vision of the town with its police department. So, very similar to what the board came up with for the town administrator, sort of coming up with a town values statement. And then that will get posted along with the sort of recruiting materials. I don't think we're as constrained by the summer as we were with the town administrator. We're
Okay.
trying to get it done before summer. I think we can continue to do this process over the summer.
And what's the target final date for the police chief, or Chief McGowan? Is it September 1st or September 30th?
September 30.
Okay, all right, so we have some time.
But that was extendable, right?
Well, he kind of has to play with these hours, right, Carl?
Right.
It can't be full
Can't go
time.
over a certain amount of hours.
Okay.
Right.
Well, just that if you need a little wiggle room, there's
Right,
potential.
right.
He felt he could, if he needed to adjust his hours, he could give us some wiggle room to extend it beyond that time.
Okay.
All right, so the next, so I actually, and I guess I'll do this in this section. It's just an announcement from the recycling committee. They just wanted to remind the town that they're holding a special semi-annual recycling day, and it's going to be this weekend. It's in honor of all those mothers, all of us mothers out there. And there's free shredding available, which is a wonderful feeling if you partake in that.
And bicycles.
Right, from 9 to 12. There's furniture and household goods for New Life Furniture Bank all day Saturday. There's a tire and bike collection all day Saturday and Sunday. And then there's the special personal hygiene products that are going to be collected for the Circle of Hope. And that is also going to be happening on 5/13. And the Circle of Hope protects health and meets basic needs of vulnerable infants, children, and adults experiencing homelessness in Boston, Cambridge, and Metro West. So it's a busy couple of days at the transfer station.
I don't know if you can combine Mother's Day into a visit to the transfer station.
Yeah, that's sort of a stretch, don't you
I
think?
I don't know,
Got to figure out where that connection would be, but
because in my mind, being able to clean your house, get rid of papers and old furniture just makes you feel so good. So it's Mother's Day, so you can get your kids to help you.
I'd rather go to brunch.
There's nothing better than a clean house.
Brunch.
The other thing are our agendas coming up. So we are planning to have an open session interview of our two finalists on Thursday, the 18th of May, and then hopefully there will be a vote as well to hire one of the candidates for town administrator. And then we have another meeting on Tuesday, May the 23rd, and that's our meeting prior to Memorial Day. And at that meeting, the first item of business will be to reorganize the board. And so, Bob, I'm going to give you the baton, and you can now look at the rest of the agenda.
Listen,
there are other things on there.
You have, you've done a hell of a lot of heavy lifting. I hope the baton is light when it comes my way.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
It could
We'll
be
see.
the baton.
I'll
Could
practice my twirling. How's that?
Okay, hopefully we'll have have selected a firm at that point for the police chief search.
definitely.
That would
We're
be
gonna
cool.
just we'll just press on with this staff replacement, agenda, really.
Right. And then, so that's all I have, unless you have some other things. And then the next is the town administrator update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to share my screen, try to. So I just want to make actually a couple of comments on just two things you talked about today. One is in terms of board meetings. So I've been contacted by the Selectmen's office in Westwood. They would like to have a joint meeting with the board regarding hail. And I have 3 possible dates, so we'll send that out tomorrow to you to look at those 3 dates.
So Carl, is this an in-person meeting?
This would be a Zoom meeting.
Okay, because I'm only asking because I'm on vacation May the 24th through the 31st. So I'm hoping that
Well, I'm hoping this is pushed to June or later.
Yeah, well, one of them, I don't have them right in front of me, but one was the May 22nd, Monday, May 22nd, and then the other 2 days were in June.
Oh, good. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So then, so you'll send that around and
So we'll send that out. Mona will send that out to you tomorrow. And I'm just looking for, and then the other thing to talk about, I'm still going to get my screen up for my other updates. Earlier, you had made a point about for the Carroll Community Center project doing a special newsletter, our e-newsletter around that, which I wrote down because I thought that was a great idea. But I'll need to do a little checking with town council on it, because there is an election around the debt exclusion question around the community center. There's some limitations on putting town resources into a matter which is coming before the voters.
We can't provide the voters with information about what it is they're going to vote on?
Well, it's not black and white. And again, I'd want to talk about it with town council, because there's sort of this gray line between information and advocacy.
Right. We are not advocating we have never taken a position on the Carroll project.
Yeah, and I'm certainly aware of that. And it's sort of more of a matter of, are we spending town resources, to bring this before the voters? And I don't have an answer, but I at least wanted to bring it to your attention. And
These things are like wormhole things.
They are.
But Bob, if that's the case, I think we can just sit in a room with Ruth and pull something together and put it right, and it's just digital, and it will go out with the information.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
Actually, Ruth's done a pretty good job writing this stuff up.
so
Right.
that word, advocacy, I think I heard that explain to me the potential of that word being an advocate. Yikes.
Right. I mean, we just don't want to get into trouble. So
Yeah.
if worst case, we write it ourselves.
It goes back to a court case a number of years ago, where the courts came up with a standard of what communities could do. So each of you, as members of the Selectmen, you can speak on it, and there's no restrictions there. It gets into where if there's a suggestion that we're spending town resources on it, financial resources. So putting something on the website, I believe should be okay. That's not town resources. We're not photocopying things. We're not handing out paper. But I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure we're on the right side of what the statute allows. So in terms of the town administrator updates, so I wanted to bring you up to date on our recruitments again. So hopefully you can see this on the screen. Is that right?
Yes.
Good. So the first is item number 4, the HR director. So 2 things to bring to your attention here. We'll be doing interviews. We have 2 panels set up for next Thursday to interview 3 candidates. And one is a staff panel, and then the other is made up of 2 members of the personnel board, the town clerk, and the superintendent of schools will be on the second panel. And the other part of this, which could be exciting as we go forward with this position, is I've been having discussions with the school department, the regional school, about potentially having a shared HR department serving both the town and the regional school. They do not and have not in the past had a HR director, and they recently went through an evaluation of that part of their operations, and the recommendation was that they have a subject matter expert, so somebody who is a subject matter expert in HR. So they saw, about the same time, they saw that we were recruiting and wondered if it would be possible for us to jointly have an HR director that served both the town and the region, and sort of a number 2 person as well to work with the HR director to provide services. So it would sort of bring more resources than either of us could do on our own. We have just funding just for an HR director. So we, potentially would be able to get an HR director and you could call it an assistant HR director, or HR generalist is used in many communities, that term. And it could also provide us with some bench strength. So, if a position turned over, all of your institutional knowledge doesn't go out the door. You have a second person who's been involved. So Rick Reed, our interim HR director, and I met with the superintendent today, and the director of business services, Don Vittori, and we sort of brainstormed around this. So at a minimum, the superintendent will sit in on the interviews. So to help us evaluate our 3 candidates, if the candidates are interested, because this is a little bit different than what we advertised, a little bit of a bigger position or a broader position. If the candidates are interested, then we'll sort of discuss do we both jointly believe that one of the 3 candidates could serve both organizations. And if we can reach agreement on that, on one of the 3 candidates, then we'll sort of figure out how to put together the pieces and what our agreement with the schools would look like in terms of sharing this position. So, something that other communities we know have shared town and HR services. Our neighbor in Medfield has it. This is a little bit of a twist because it's with the region as opposed to our it would be more than just our own school department. It would be, not only cover the Chickering school, but also the region. But we at least want to look at it. It may be a way to, again, give us a little bit more depth, make a little bit better use of the town's financial resources in it. So I'll keep you informed on sort of where that goes. Next item I want to bring to your attention is number 5, the assistant town administrator position. So we started that recruitment this week. And with applications due in about mid-June. So we hope to run that sort of in parallel with the board selecting a town administrator, so that if we have good candidates for assistant town administrator, the new town administrator can be involved in those final interviews for the assistant position and then that selection process.
So, Carl, did you send out the job description?
For the HR director?
No, for the assistant town administrator.
I'm sorry, yes. You mean to the board?
Yes.
If you haven't seen it, then we haven't, but I can make sure we do that tomorrow.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
I think we went over it with Chris, but I don't remember, because remember we broke out the HR piece from it?
Yeah, we've done a couple of things to the original ATA.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, we'll get that
I
up to you.
don't, I just don't remember exactly what.
And again, it's the same issue. I mean, we're going to look at this position probably a little bit differently than we have in the past. So it'd be good to understand what sort of how we're handling this.
Right, but I also like the idea of, thinking outside of the box and seeing if there's synergies with the school and seeing if we can make things work.
You say that now, but if you get into a tussle with the school, it'd be unpleasant.
Right. So, they did go and talk to Medfield, because Medfield actually has a lot of shared departments. So they share facilities with the schools, they share HR with the schools. It's just their model, which is a little bit different.
Yeah, I think what we should do is we should share their IT support and make a trade. They provide us IT support and project development, and we give them HR support.
Well, that's not a bad idea.
Of course, it's not a bad idea. It's what do you think? I go to sleep here during these meetings?
Yeah. Well, they run
Sometimes.
they run in
Well, yeah,
different
sometimes.
platforms. But anyway.
When they run past 9 o'clock, Robin and I take naps.
Right. Well, tonight we're right on time.
Oh, you're gonna jinx us.
Well,
Carl, before we move on from this, is this document on the shared drive? Your document?
the project status.
It's on the shared. It's on the yes. It is on the shared drive.
Okay, I was trying to make notes really quickly on it as I have thinking about our upcoming planning meetings, and then I just realized I don't need to do this. It's on the shared drive.
Yeah, it's under. I'm just trying to think how you have access, because it's under the assistant town administrator folder, and then we're under the assistant town administrator. There's one that says town administrator, and this is the only thing that's in it. So if that helps.
It lives in the assistant town administrator's folder, and in that file it says there's a folder that says town administrator. This is the only thing in
This is it.
And it points you to a maze, and you have
Glad
to
that-
go maze.
I don't deal with a lot of complexity.
I'm glad my office is not the only office that has directions that are like this. Thank you.
Carl, there's more recruiting updates you want to provide us with?
Yes, one more, the planning director update. So we only had 4 applicants. The chair of the planning board looked at those and did not feel any of them met what they're looking for in terms of a candidate. So we're going to pivot and go to a recruiting firm to help us and start the recruitment over again.
But clearly,
Yeah, I
the
mean,
town has
that's
roof
been a
replacement.
tough position to fill.
It has, and we met with Sherborne today because they're trying to fill it. Their own planning director position, but there didn't seem to be a logical fit between us having a shared position. And Medfield is also trying to fill planning director's position.
So this whole friggin' model is breaking down for municipalities.
For smaller ones like in this area, absolutely it is.
No,
I
and
just-
right, and think about it, Bob, if you were a planner, is it, so for some people, like open space and conservation, that may be an angle that really excites them.
Yep,
I think you go to school and you want to design cities, right?
right. No, I just,
So
I just,
I think you need like a unique planner for this kind of a role.
yeah, I don't know of people being produced who view municipal government as a, place to be.
There are, yet there are.
But the demand is greater, right?
The
The
demand
supply
is
is
greater than
slow.
the supply, but there are places that, in Boston at a lot of the universities that have vibrant courses and a vibrant student body that are studying municipal governments.
Yeah, but I'm not sure it's 6,000 person, 50, there may be, as Robin points out, it may be larger towns with more exciting projects.
Well, maybe we should be recruiting in the urban, I mean, in the suburban schools in mid-America.
Yeah, maybe.
Don't know.
Anyway, townhouse roof replacement, it's working great because I get hit with stuff when I go to the townhouse.
Yep. Okay, so that project has started. They're doing. They haven't started on the actual top of the roof itself, but they're doing some brickwork, some other work up there that needed to be done. But as you can see, it's well underway. And I guess the last one I may want to hold, particularly if Mr. Lynch is waiting, because the number 37, the funding plan for the Carroll Community Center, that may take some time. And I know that you had scheduled Mr. Lynch for 7:35, so I can't tell if he's on yet.
He is on.
Yeah, so would you like to then hold this one and let him make his presentation?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Does that work for you, Bob and John?
Yeah.
Okay. So as a member of the screening committee, I am very pleased to have Bernie Lynch here, presenting to you and Sharon Flaherty, our two finalists. From my perspective, it was a very well-run search. We, as members of the screening committee, were well prepared. We had a good pool of candidates, and we're excited to have Bernie present the two finalists.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for having us on tonight and continuing to work with the Board of Selectmen on this effort. I agree with Robin that I think that it was a good process as we described it to you when we started back in January. We wanted to meet with members of the Board of Selectmen on a one-on-one basis to identify your priorities and what you were looking for from the next town administrator. We reached out to the department heads and obtained input from them as to what they felt were the projects that they were working on, the issues that they had within their departments. We obtained information from the public through a survey that we did, which we had 41 responses, which doesn't seem like a lot, but that's actually a pretty good number given the size of the community relative to the other communities that we do work with. And we got some good input from those that survey work. And all of that went into the development of the position statement that the Board of Selectmen approved a while back. And then we hit the streets. We went out, we advertised the position in the normal places you would find with a position of this sort: the Massachusetts Municipal Association, the International City and County Management Association, the Engaging Local Government Leaders Organization, which is a new organization of younger, more technology-driven individuals that obviously we use them all the time in our searches, but it particularly corresponded to the priorities that the board had set of those that are what we would call digital natives, that which technology is just a normal part of their lives. And we felt that that was a group that we definitely wanted to reach out to. Beyond that, we also reached out to the graduate schools of public and business administration in the region, those business schools that have a more of a public management type of perspective. And we notified them of the position, not for the graduates, the new graduates, but for those that are the alumni of these institutions, to sort of tap into those. And then we have our own database of about 450 or so people that we have that are part of our what we've accumulated over the years from here in Massachusetts, but beyond, coming from the public, private, and nonprofit sectors that are looking for municipal work. We got a good response. We had 33 applicants, which is actually a pretty good number given the market nowadays. I happen to hear what you were talking about with relative to some of your other recruitments, and it's down on all positions in all communities everywhere. But we got, I thought, a good strong pool of 33 candidates that gave the screening committee a good opportunity to see what was out there and some different options. And over the course of a lengthy meeting, we narrowed that field down to 7 people that we from around the country, primarily from Massachusetts, but we also interviewed from outside of Massachusetts. We've identified 7 candidates that the screening committee felt were worthy of interviewing, and from that, I sent the members of the Board of Selectmen the questions that we use, the topics that we use. We focused on their career overview, their interest in Dover, their leadership and management style, communication techniques and collaboration, particularly related to community engagement, which again was an identified priority of the Selectmen. Project management, given the lengthy numbers of projects that the board wishes to pursue, we felt that was important. We did focus in again on technology, given the prioritization that the board has with that. Financial management, strategic planning, personnel management, collective bargaining, and external relationships. And we, as always, we focus on what's the relationship that the individual would have or envisions having with the Board of Selectmen. And so we focused in on those areas and identified 3 strong candidates that were identified because of their experience in these areas, but also their enthusiasm and passion for the position and their interest in advancing the professionalism of Dover's local government. And unfortunately, one of the candidates did withdraw. This was one of our out-of-the-state candidates that was not aware that his name was going to go public at this time, and he was not prepared to do that given his current employment status, which led us to the 2 candidates that you have to be presented to you tonight. The first, and this is in alphabetical order, Michael Blanchard is the current assistant town administrator in the town of Easton. He's held that position for 5 years and been involved in a number of projects and initiatives there. We did provide the board members with the resumes, cover letters, as well as a summarized report on the references that we contacted regarding these individuals. I would note that beyond the contacting the stated references, we also did further background work, the traditional criminal history check, but also beyond that, contacting people that they didn't necessarily give us as names, but people that we're familiar with in these communities and that they have worked in, the organizations that they've worked in, and spoken to those people as well. In fact, even earlier tonight, I was with someone from the town of Easton that I was able to speak to regarding Mr. Blanchard. But he's held that position for 5 years. He had been with the Good Samaritan Medical Center, Stewart Health System for a very short period of time before wanting to return to the municipal sector. He had been the director of public health for Framingham, which was going through a period, that department was going through a period of transition and change that he led during that period of time. And he'll be able to speak more eloquently to that in his interview. And he served as for a lengthy period of time with the town of Milton, both as a health director and assistant town manager, human resources director. So he has a good rounded background in a number of areas of municipal government that I think meet the needs and interests of the town of Dover. Has a bachelor's degree from UMass Lowell in environmental science, as well as a master's degree in environmental health from Tufts University. And he has been hold a certificate from Suffolk University, Moakley Center in Local Government Leadership and Management, which is a program that's administered or in coordination with the Municipal Association to build the next generation of local government managers. And again, his references spoke very highly of the experiences he's had and his commitment to and enthusiasm for municipal government. Patrick Shield is the other finalist. Patrick is the assistant currently in the town of Walpole. Again, a position he held for about 5 years. Again, in this area, he's had, how a community uses an assistant varies from community to community. Some have focused with a very narrow portfolio. In the case of Walpole with Patrick and the town administrator there, he's used him to work on a number of different areas of local government, financial oversight of various town departments, has been focused on human resources, as well as areas of insurance and procurement and project management. And he's filled in on a variety of department head level positions as vacancies have occurred. He's been the go-to person for the town administrator there for varied responsibilities, from community development director, which is a fairly substantial position, as you would expect in the town of Walpole, given their downtown area, but also recreation, council on aging. He's served in those roles in the town of Walpole. Prior to that, he worked in the legislature for Senator Timilty's district, and had done that for about 4 years, and gave him an opportunity there, as he's pointed out, to be involved in a variety of policy areas related to local government, but also constituent services. And so that notion of community engagement, citizen engagement, is something that he's been involved with as well there, as well as moving forward with a number of major projects in his role as assistant in the town of Walpole. He has a Bachelor of Arts from UMass Boston, as well as a Master of Science in Public Affairs from UMass Boston. And again, he holds he's participated in the municipal finance seminar through Suffolk University and the Municipal Association. And they both, I believe, hold their MCPPO procurement certification from the state. So those are your candidates. Again, the screening committee spent a good amount of time with these candidates and felt that they met the needs of the town as identified in the position statement that the Board of Selectmen endorsed and was involved in drafting, and felt that they were strong candidates to bring forward to you tonight. In terms of process moving forward, and I don't know if you want me to go all the way through and then come back for questions, but in terms of process, I believe we're all set to have the candidates meet with the board members over the next on a one-on-one basis over the next 2 days. Then next week, meeting with the staff for about an hour each. Participation in a community forum meet and greet. The staff meeting will take place on Tuesday. The community forum will take place on Wednesday from 4 till 6. And then the board will have a more formal interview process on Thursday from 5 to 7. I will say that it's a robust process that, as far as the communities that we've worked with, it's one of the more robust processes that we've worked with. So I think Dover will be well served in going through this process and identifying the candidate that best meets their needs. Happy to take any questions or comments. I will say that, as I pointed out in my letter to the selectmen, your screening committee were highly engaged, highly participatory in the process, and they put a lot of time and effort into reviewing the resumes and discussing the resumes and interviewing the candidates, and then discussing the strengths of all the candidates that they had an opportunity to review and speak to. So you were very well served in that capacity.
So we have a couple of very busy days ahead of us.
Yes, absolutely.
Sounds more like a week.
It does.
Yeah, a week. And we're going to do things a little differently. The community forum is actually going to be facilitated by Bernie. So, we're going to give the candidate an opportunity to say something about his or herself, and then Bernie will help facilitate questions from the community.
Is that going to be both live and hybrid, Robin?
They're in-person meetings.
The community part is all going to be in person. No opportunity for a Zoom.
No.
Going to do it in the town hall?
Right, so these are scheduled, right, in the townhouse. I can talk to Carl. People complain it's very difficult to hear.
In the townhouse?
Yeah, in the Great Hall. And we don't know how many people we're going to get, so we have to plan for a larger room. We'll make sure that all this information is posted in various outlets.
Okay.
All right, are we set?
We are.
All right, John and Bob, you kick us off tomorrow, so.
So it would seem, Bernie, and you put me early. So I'm going to hold that against you.
Figured you were up. You're up early anyway. You're seize the moment type of guy.
We'll see.
Bernie, if you can believe this, he's even grumpier in the morning.
That's when I take my I take my grumpy pills.
How could anyone be more grumpy? So.
Oh, I can hit levels of grumpiness that no one has imagined.
All right.
I
Especially when I'm editing John's stuff.
All right. So I guess we're all set. And as always, if any of you have anything that you want to talk to me about regarding the process of the candidates, feel free. You have my phone number. You have my email. I know that you know how to find me. So
Yes, we do. And I want to thank you for all the work you've done with the town and for us.
well, thank you. It's been enjoyable. So
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've been working with Robin. If you work with John and I, you wouldn't be saying that.
Oh, I can't believe. I don't believe that. So,
Sharon, I know you doing all the work, and that you're not getting any of the credit for it tonight. So thank you as well. I know that you've been a big part of this as well. And I'm only half saying that, Bernie. Thank you both.
no, thank you. We appreciate it.
And Bernie, I was trying to remember which one of the candidates, or maybe it was both of them, mentioned they wanted to plow the streets in the snowstorm.
Yes. Yeah. So just make sure they have their proper licenses and put them out there. So,
I'm going to give them shovels. They
It
won't
was
want
so
to do that.
it was so funny, you know, they were talking about getting out and meeting everybody, and I think both of them said, yeah, if you need extra hands in a snowstorm, I'm willing to get behind a truck and plow.
there you go. All right. Well, I will see you all soon, and we'll talk. Great.
Thank you very
very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, guys. Sharon, thank you very much.
Thanks, Bernie. Thanks, Sharon.
Bye.
So now we will go back to the final item on 1.6. And actually, Ruth Townsend sent an email to say she was one step ahead of us already. And she already has a first draft of a special newsletter for the community center that she was planning to send out. So,
Yeah, she's on the ball there, Ruth.
right.
So we're looking at 37, Carl?
Yes, so I'm going to start again to share my screen. Boy, why did that disappear? Hold on a second. We'll do this again. You know, I'll be gone by the time I actually figure out how to do this, right?
There you go.
All right. So the board had asked about showing some analysis of the cost of the additional cost for the Carroll Community Center, the 6.6 million. So this table gives you the sort of the raw numbers. The green line, green shaded at the top, provides the dollar impact on the average tax bill. So it starts a little over $200, excuse me, on the median tax bill, which is about 1.145 million. So it's just at 1.145 million. So on 6.6 million, it starts just over $200 in the early years, and then towards the later years, goes down to about 160. An average here of about $155 a year. That's the far right column.
So that's the average for a year for the median household.
For the median household. So yeah, in year one, again, which would be the highest, it would be $209.
Right.
And then
And this-
Rose.
And this excludes the 174, the bid alternate, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
when Carl and I talked, we decided to go with the 6.6, which was the recommendation of the building committee, and the additional warrant items obviously boost the number a little bit.
Right. Now, you know, what about, you know, there are a couple of offsets to that, like the 500,000 that we got from Green Communities, and there's the ARPA unrestricted funds that if we don't use those, we're, you know, going to lose them. So should we be showing a net number? You know, when are we going to discuss utilization of some of these other funds to potentially offset the overage? You know,
I don't see why. I mean, you could
the green
certainly add.
communities we already have.
So I mean, yeah, you could put a line in says offsets.
Okay.
below the subtotal. Yeah, my
Right.
question is, it was a question about, I always had the question about how much of the future capital projects that we've been talking about would also require borrowing. Right, we're
So,
looking at, I don't know, 15 million in capital projects in the next 3 or 4 years.
so the way we modeled those was that, we would have 1.5% of the operating budget
Yep,
and capital, and
yep.
then there was some additional free cash that you could get, that you could use for that. And that was gonna all come in under the tax levy. I mean, we could break out what that piece is, but it was all sort of part of the tax levy. That's how the model worked.
So you never going outside the tax levy for an exclusion item on the for capital.
Right. And I still strongly believe that just because you have 15 million, you don't have to replace it over the next 5 years. If we're gonna tax, if that's gonna really create hardship for the tax base, I was gonna say tax the tax base, but that doesn't work. We can spread things out a little bit more.
Well,
we
there's
can
just some big
certainly-
items, right? I mean, turf fields for the region. There's some really things that
Right, and that's been always in the capital plan.
right. So the question I'm asking is there stuff in the capital plan that has the potential that would need borrowing? Because as I understand, unless I have the numbers wrong, you're not going to be able to fund it through allocations from free cash to cap stabilization and the 600,000 from the 1.5%.
There's borrowing outside of the cap, outside of the tax levy, and then there's borrowings within the tax levy. So there was an additional 3 or 4 million of free cash that could get used on some of these additional capital projects. At the time we pulled the model together, and I can go back and look at it and make sure there was the full $15 million. But the $15 million is full of nice to haves, not only need to haves.
So some people consider the community center a nice to have.
Right. Well,
Yeah, and they're going to get a chance to vote on that in
Right.
2 weeks.
right. But and everybody voted for that. So we could go back and see what else.
Right.
Else.
So what I need for the information sessions is I need simple models that I can explain to people. Right? Complexity is the enemy of knowledge. So going across, I mean, I understand that what we're doing here, but if I go back to 2021, we also showed a range of impact relative to different price points, median, high, low, so that people had a really good understanding of what the impact was to them. And so again, the question is, how do you present this information for the average resident to understand the impact? And I'm going to have to work on it because and it's going to have to be a combination of the things we know
And things you don't know.
and the things in the capital plan that may or may not come to fruition.
So there's got to be an addition to both the horizontal spreadsheet that we have in front of us right now and the pie chart, mountain chart spreadsheet that I have in my hand that Carl produced for us today.
Yep.
And the only thing that my comment of both these were very well done. They were Carl, very well done, very easy to understand. Love the color coding in the graphs. And the only thing that I had as a comment was Bob's comment. These are the things that are missing that we know of in the capital budget. Fire truck number 2, however you want to call it, school project number 2, replacing the 6-wheel truck for capital that we're going to be doing next year for Kevin. So all of those items, some of those items have the potential to be outside the levy limit.
And we've made a point of emphasizing this in several issues. So I'm going to have to address, these potentialities. We could asterisk them, we could do whatever.
Yeah.
But people need to know what the load may look like going forward.
Even if you just say, adding what would be the 5th item to this, we've got the 4 items. Adding the 5th item is potential.
Capital. Yeah, add the 5th item, capital. Yeah.
Capital potential. Put in $1 million of outside the levy limit capital potential for, call it fire truck number 2 or whatever it is you want to call it, doesn't really matter what that would mean, because that just gives people more of, it takes the unknown and it allows for it.
So the overall flow is best represented by the color chart.
Yeah.
Right.
Really.
And that was very powerful back in 2021 when we showed that impact statement on that chart. So that's sort of a keeper. The challenge is sort of the nuances that we've been talking about and how we make that clear and easily understandable, similar to what both you, Robin, and Melissa did at town meeting. So that challenge I got to sort of really focus on that, how to get that done.
Yeah, I just think if you had an additional column on top of each one of those bars and the column was gold or.
Right. No, and then at least you have the whole picture, right?
Yeah, picture.
But I think the visual is most important, and being inclusive is important. Coming down to an individual's question, but how does it affect me? Is a different sort of is a discussion point. And so if you start with sort of the median and you go 2 divs one way and 2 divs the other way, you can give people an idea of what the overall impact is. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's relatively modest.
It is, but if you also look at the number, and if you're at the upper end of the scale and your house is valued at $3.5 million or $4 million, it's a $4,000 a year increase. It's not a $1,000 a year increase.
Right. So that we have to work through.
So that person is should be able to see that in this presentation.
Yeah, and again, I did send Carl. Carl has the 21 stuff, so it's in there. But I mean, I just sent it to him the other day, so he probably has that chance.
Right. I also think we should, reduce 6.6 by what we know already we can use.
You mean what's available to use, Robin?
Right.
I agree. I think that's right. I mean, this is, again, we're talking about a borrowing. We're talking about offsets, and we're talking about potential borrowing, and we're talking about capital items. So yeah, it's a little bit complicated.
Carl, can you make that a little bit bigger? I just
Is this the bar chart?
the bar chart, yeah, just to enhance it a little bit, because what happens is, if you're the 65-year-old with a $3 million house and you're paying $36,000 a year in property taxes, that you want to see age 65 through age 75, what's going to be the impact of my tax bill? I just think that's powerful, and it's very helpful.
Yeah, and you got to remember, this is only the debt piece of the tax base, right? It does not. That's all this is. We're just talking about that piece of your tax bill is going to change by relatively small amounts of money. It's not the entire tax bill. The tax bill is going to go up for other reasons.
Oh yeah. No. Just as this, the impact of this on your tax
Yes.
bill. Yeah. You're going to go up for all the reasons of cost of living adjustments and all those cost adjustments that we make because your property value is going up.
Yep.
And we all know property values only go up. They never, ever, ever go down.
Yep. Okay.
Well, they go down, your tax rate just goes up.
I was being sarcastic. Robin was just being mean.
Yeah. Town administrators are too expensive. We should get rid of need to carve that out.
Well, this is a subject that people really want a lot of information on, and they want it to be, as you said, Bob, as clear and present as possible. But it's also critically important for that 65-year-old who's looking at their tax bill going from $36,000 a year to $46,000 a year.
Carl, yeah, what are your thoughts?
So we have the financial model set up to add or subtract. So the hardest part of that work is done. I think I would reiterate what Robin said, though, in terms of other capital, the way we've modeled all the other big capital is that would be done within the levy limit.
No, we had. How big is the limit? How wide a gap do we have there?
Well, what we were able to do is, as you recall, we were sitting on a lot of free cash, and so we're trying to draw that free cash down to a more manageable, a more appropriate level. And so we were going to use, as we drew down the free cash, we're going to use it to offset the debt service on these, the turf fields and the roof projects, the other big capital projects that were beyond the 1.5% of the levy that we were setting aside. So cash to do that smoothing of our debt service. The other piece, you haven't talked about it yet, but that's out there, if I can call up the right slide, is the Hale project. And so this one here with the brown color,
Yep.
Hopefully you're seeing that. So that overlays, the potential for the Hale purchase this fall. So that would be a real debt exclusion, right? That the only way we can really afford that Hale is if it's a debt exclusion. So
Well, we already pumped $4 million of free cash into Carroll. I don't want to pump any more free cash into Carroll.
no, this is just that $4 million that we originally pumped into Carroll.
Yep.
And the brown here is the overlay would add if the Hale project goes forward, that purchase, this is what the curve looks like visually on the table I presented before.
The top of it is at 1,000, right?
The top is 1,000, yes.
In whatever it is, 2025 or 2026?
2026.
Yep. Okay. So
1,000 on a house that is 1.1 million.
1.15. Yeah.
That's paying
So it's your median house.
$13,000 a year right now.
I thought the median house was 1.5 for some reason.
I checked with the assessor's office, and for this year, fiscal 23, it's the number that you see at the in the heading here.
Oh, okay. Oh, I take your word for it. Okay.
It's a start. So the hardest thing is putting it on paper, and then it's figuring out how to simplify it.
Applying $4 million of reserves to see, is that the 4 million?
Yeah.
That's the 4 million you already
Okay.
agreed to do. Yes.
So is this debt, are you showing this net of the reserve?
Yes, net of the 4 million, if that's what your question was.
Right.
Yeah, it's net
So
of the
this
4
is,
million.
okay.
So that's the blue line, right?
That's
Blue line is the
the-
addition, the green line is going back
Yeah,
to,
it's sort of the baby blue line is
yeah, so the bottom
the
level
original.
is Old Springdale. The green is Carroll, the 19 million.
Yeah.
Right, and the 4 million is reflected in the green Carroll line.
Correct.
Yeah. The mitigation of, yes, of the slope, yes.
And it was
right.
just done in the first few years, because remember the Chickering debt
Rolled off.
Rolled
rolled
off,
off?
yeah, yeah. It was a pretty clever plan that Carl put together.
Yeah,
Okay. I like this one. I got to figure out what to do in sort of the first chart.
You're just looking for the right words.
I'm looking, yes, I'm
I
looking
can
for,
tell you, I
yes,
can tell you the numbers. You're just trying to find the right words.
yeah, the spiel, so to speak.
So Bob, we had this really nice thing. I'll look through presentations, but I vaguely remember these two towers that we used to show the impact. Let me see if I can find it, because I remember they were really good.
What, do you remember for 2021 or?
Yeah, we used it for the original Carroll Community Center.
and I believe that's what Mr. Spriggett sent to me, so I probably have those as well.
I could go back to 2019 because we did some comparisons back then as well.
Yeah, I probably have everything. Let me go through and see what I have.
Well, we don't have to do it now, Robin.
No, I'm not doing it now. I'll do it over the weekend and send you what I have.
Yeah, I'll do the same, Robin. I'll look at 19 and I'll look at 21 again.
I have the file. I know what that is that you're talking about, Robin. So yeah,
John, John, you went, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay.
All right. So we have homework to do then.
We have homework to do here, yes.
Okay. All
Carl,
right.
thank you. This is very helpful. It's a great visual.
Good, thank you.
All
Oh,
right.
you'll be hearing from me.
I imagine I will, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna look through my stuff, Carl. I have so much stuff. So I'll look through it and see what I have. So we are on to the consent agenda, I believe. And the consent agenda consists of approval, oh my word, approval of Sunday, October 1st, 2023 ride for food, and approval of the 2023 one-day special liquor licenses for May 13th, 14th, 19th, June 1st, and June 10th. So I am going to move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springett.
John Jeffries.
All right, and there being no further business, I am going to make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second?
Before I second that motion, I'm going to say we had one heck of a day out on Buzzards Bay. And
I
20
was-
to 26 knot winds.
You're a little red, Bob.
Yeah, I'm also frozen because the wind was whipping like heck and the
Yeah,
water's still cold.
okay.
Second the motion.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries.
And
Thank you
don't
all.
be late for your interviews tomorrow morning, gentlemen.
I'm going to show up in pajamas.
That's okay.
We'll be
They'll-
there at 07 dark 30 and
We should meet at Dunkin'.
that's a good idea. Sebastian will have my order ready for me.
All right. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
And
Thanks.
everybody have a great weekend and
Happy Mother's Day.
and
Happy
all that
Mother's
stuff.
Day.
Yeah, happy Mother's Day to all those mothers going to the transfer station.
All right. Good night, folks.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.